Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Commander Andy Clowes, and I'm the President of the Submariners Association here in Queensland. Also like to acknowledge our patron, Anne Wood, of the Submarines Association here with us this morning as well. Thanks, Anne. On behalf of the Submarines Association and my fellow Submariners, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you here this morning. I'm just going to put my glasses on. That's better. For our dedication ceremony of the monument you see to my left. Of course, we're enormously proud of the rich military history associated with Brisbane. In the scheme of things, it is, however, but a blink of an eye when compared to the rich First Nations history associated with this place. With that in mind, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather, the Turrbal and Yuggera nations, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Can I start by acknowledging a number of our guests here this morning? Firstly, Councillor Greg Adaman, Councillor for the Pullenvale Ward. Greg, your assistance in supporting us with our application to Department of Veterans Affairs has been enormously appreciated, as well as your support as the project took shape within your ward. I also appreciate Paul from your office, who's helped me along the way with all the logistics for this event. Thanks, Paul. Secondly, and also from the Brisbane City Council and manager of the Mount Coot-tha Park, Steve Schumacher. Thanks, Steve. Steve was instrumental in coming up with a solution for the plinth in the form of a rock. Together with Michelle Nash and John Bishop, he made numerous visits to the Coot-tha Quarry to select the rock, get it installed in this position. Stephen, thanks so much for that. John, I acknowledge your efforts in installing and putting the plinth around the rock. Hopefully you had a truck to bring it over. You didn't carry it over here yourself, but you're a strong man, but not sure if you can carry that. Hopefully it's quite steel-proof with the size of it. And I know Alan Tonks prefers to remain in the background, but Alan, along with David Jones, author of the book Submarines Down Under, has been enormously helpful in bringing together the history of Mount Coot-tha with a wealth of facts, pictures, diagrams and historical investigation. I also acknowledge Peter Rassi for his efforts along the way in helping me and guiding me in the right direction with the history of Coot-tha. Thanks, Peter. For those that might be interested, Alan has also gave a lecture on the history of Coot-tha to the Queensland Historical Society recently, and he's got copies of his paper if you're interested. Where is Alan? Oh, there he is. Alan's down the back there. Just see Alan afterwards, and he'd be more than happy to share a copy of that. And I've got a copy. It's a fantastic history. Also like to acknowledge Dan Webster from the Queensland Heritage and Masonry. The SAA has had a long association with Dan and QHM through the Submariners Walk Heritage Trail at Tenerife, and we thank you, Dan, for the great work in installing the plaques on the monument here. Thanks, Dan. Finally, Mike Harris and others from the Australian American Association. Great to see you here, Mike. To all our other guests here today, thanks for being here. Without further ado, I'll ask Barry McEwen to pipe the still. Coxon, pipe the still. Thanks, Barry. I'll now hand over to a good friend, Adrian Pete Sellers from the Submarines Association, to read the Submariners' Prayer.
Morning all. Submariners' Prayer. O Father, hear our prayer to thee from your humble servants beneath the sea. In the depths of oceans as oft they stray, so far from night, so far from day. We would ask your guiding light to glow, to make their journey safe below. Please oft times grant them patient mind, then ere the darkness won't them blind. They seek thy protection from the deep, please grant them peace where'er they sleep. Of their homes and loved ones far away, we ask your care for them each day, until they surface once again to drink the air and feel the rain. We ask your guiding hand to show a safe progression, sure and slow. Dear Lord, please hear our prayer to thee from your humble servants beneath the sea. Amen.
Amen.
Next week.
Right, thanks, Pete. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Councillor Greg Adderman from the Pullen Vale Ward to say a few words about Camp Coot-tha and this little memorial that we put here.
Well, thank you, Andy. Particularly proud to have played a role in the renaming of the site, just not far from here at all, the entry to JC Slaughter Falls and the naming of Camp Coot-tha Place. That all started with a speech in Council in November 2022 in support of those advocating for such a recognition and culminated with the unveiling of the Camp Coot-tha Place signage on that very warm morning 1 year later. It almost feels as though when we do these recognitions we pick the hottest day to do it, but at least we're in the shade. And it's also good to see a number of familiar faces today who were here that day for that unveiling. So coincidentally, at the same time, the Queensland branch of the Submariners Association of Australia were also undertaking a project to identify sites in and around Brisbane which played a significant role in Brisbane's rich submarine history. And Commander Close thought that adding to the Camp Coot-tha Place signage would be a perfect addition to the Submariners Walk Heritage Trail at Tenerife and approached me for a letter of support for that project. For me, that was a no-brainer and was the beginning, as Andy did say before, of why we are gathered here today. And through the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Submariners Association obtained a grant to develop this very impressive infographic. And I'm pleased that our council was also able to assist with in-kind support, such as the provision of this magnificent piece of Mount Coot-tha stone and to install it at this location. And as Andy mentioned, we have Steve and John from Council. Thank you, gentlemen, for the work that you did to assist, and you've done a great job, so thank you very much. Showcasing the history of Mount Coot-tha, the First Nations history, in addition to the more recent history, including its role in World War II, is important and enriches the visitor experience of the many thousands of people who come to the mountain each week. And for those of us and those who will be here leading up to and during the 2032 Olympic Games. It's through dedication such as this that you're all playing an important part in telling that story. So thank you very much again.
Thank you, Councillor Adderman. Hopefully you've all had a chance to have a read of the information on the infographic that we've installed. I acknowledge here today a couple of my running buddies, Phil and Pete, from the Mount Coot-tha running group. And most of us have been running around Mount Coot-tha for more than 20 years. And to be honest, had little understanding of the rich military history that we ran through, over and around. To be completely honest, it wasn't until Councillor Adderman made his speech in the chamber of the Brisbane City Council in 2022 in support of the proposal to rename this area Camp Coot-tha Place that I took a more detailed interest in its wartime history. The concrete slabs around the mountain, which just looked odd, or the culverts around Slaughter Falls and Simpson Falls, many of the stone gutters and countless other items, which Alan Tonks has painstakingly documented, were just bits and pieces of material. And it really wasn't until I researched that history that I understood the importance that it played. Like most people, the historical significance of many of these items was simply overlooked. And I'm looking forward to my hike around Mount Coot-tha with you tomorrow, Alan, where I can learn more. And history is important. I firmly believe that it's important to explain the past and give people an understanding of it. The preservation of historical places and artefacts around the world drives a multi-billion-dollar tourist industry. But more than that, it recognises the part played by those that created that history. It is indeed a great thing that we are able to preserve the more recent history of World War II here, along with that original First Nations history, which dates back tens of thousands of years in the place that we now know as Brisbane. Mount Coot-tha was originally home to the Turrbal Aboriginal people, whose name derives from the Aboriginal word for honey, Coot-tha, hence Coot-tha. The area was declared a public reserve in 1880, and by the 1930s had become a popular picnic spot with Brisbane locals and visitors. In 1942, the reserve was leased to the United States Navy by the Brisbane City Council on the 1st of August 1942, the USN established the US Naval Magazine in a facility known as Camp Coot-tha. Built by the US Navy's 55th Seabees Battalion with assistance from the Allied Works Council, the facility covered much of Mount Coot-tha with ammunition bunkers, as well as maintenance facilities, accommodation and dining messes across the mountain. The facility here at Camp Coot-tha was used to store all sorts of ammunition, explosives and aerial mines in support of Allied operations in the Pacific. The concrete slab directly behind you is one of the remaining foundation slabs of more than 50 concert huts that were once located here. That slab where the coffee van is currently standing was where the US Navy's garage once stood. Other remnant foundation slabs exist along the Discovery Trail and at the Bush Chapel towards JC Slaughter Falls. Most people are unaware of the significant role Brisbane played in the Allied campaign in the Pacific during World War II, and the significant role undertaken by Brisbane-based submarines. Over the course of the war, 59 US submarines were based in Brisbane, with a further 25 submarines undertaking operational visits. In addition to that, 6 submarine tenders were also based at the New Farm Wharves. Of the many USN submarines based in Brisbane proceeding on war patrols, 7 were lost with all hands. And, as it is customary, we will acknowledge their sacrifice when we recite the ode. In conclusion, can I thank you all for giving us your time this morning as we dedicate this small piece of Brisbane wartime history. I'll now call upon my good friend Terry Shorrock of the Submarines Association to recite the Naval Ode. Terry.
They have no grave but the cruel sea, no flowers lay at their head. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, a fast on the ocean bed. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget them.
In closing, can I again thank you, Greg, for all your support. The location of the monument here along the Discovery Trail is a perfect starting point. I hope it's the start of more interpretive signage around Mount Coot-tha. Aside from the natural beauty of Coot-tha Park, I'm of the firm belief that little bits of signage such as this really enhance the visitor experience. After Barry pipes the still, we'll invite you to join us for some refreshments at the coffee van. Thanks again to Brisbane City Council Pullen Vale Ward for your generosity and your support throughout this project. Coxon, pipe the carry-on. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, just before we break, Greg Adaman is forever the professional, has asked me to bring along a thank you gift to your good self, of which Greg is hoping that you find of great interest to read in Bahrain.
Oh, you take the credit, Peter.
Thank you very much. Oh, lovely. Awesome, thank you.
It's the history of World War II in Brisbane.